So, well, thank you so much for joining us this morning for this Alameda County Workforce Development Board's sponsored presentation about what employers need in today's business world. I am Stephanie Neely from California Employers Association. Just to go over a few little etiquette rules here. If you're not speaking, please have your microphone on mute. It helps reduce some of the background noise. Again, we encourage people to have their cameras on. If you have a question, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask. We want this to be very engaging, more of a conversation. This should be a very interactive and informative, fun thing. If you're one of the first 10 people who registered, you should have received your goodie box with lots of fun little things in there. So we hope you got a chance to open that and enjoy that. Oh, it's okay if you don't have the camera. Thank you for the note though. If you don't feel like jumping on your microphone too, there's a chat box at the bottom. Feel free to type in anything to that, and we will also be addressing questions and comments in the chat box as well. We are joined today by Javier Contreras from the Alameda County Workforce Development Board. Thank you for joining us, Javier. And thank you for putting this on for all the Alameda County employers. And your presenter today is going to be Daniela Devitt. You can see her up there. She is going to be taking the lead and telling you what employers need in today's business world.
I'm glad to see everybody, and that our moderator today is going to be Kim Guzman, our CEO and president, and Tara Brennan is going to also be assisting us with our roundtable.
Good morning. Good morning. And before you get started, Daniela, I just want to remind everybody that the reason we're doing it and the purpose and intention behind this is Javier and I and Carmelo and now David, you're joining the team. We're talking about how do we help Alameda County employers get together in a roundtable setting. And our goal was that we'd really not be virtual, but we'd be in a real room around a roundtable, and we'd be talking about all the lessons in leadership that we've learned from the pandemic now that we're in a post-pandemic world. That was our goal when we set all these up a year ago. Well, we're not in a post-pandemic world. We're still in a pandemic world. And so these are virtual. But we did want to make it like we were in person together. And that's why we sent out the boxes with some snacks and some fun things, just like if you came in the room and we were greeting you. And so that's the reason behind having having all of our cameras on and really being able to just be together here today and share. So please, throughout the whole presentation, stop us, raise your hand, just unmute yourself, ask a question, put it in the chat box. But this is all for you. And again, this is a session that we've done for many employers. And generally it's a paid thing, but Alameda County has paid for this so that employers in Alameda County can just, be more successful and be supported by them. So I applaud you, Javier, and your team. Thank you for bringing this service to all of the Alameda County employers. And I've heard Daniela speak on this topic before. She's fabulous. So take it away, Daniela.
Well, great. And I do want to reiterate, this is your roundtable. And as we go along, something resonates with you, you have a question, let's talk about it. I'll bring down the screen periodically for us to have a discussion. And I think we have enough time afterwards to really talk about this important time in our lives as employers. And so it's called What Employers Need to Stay Relevant. It's for today and tomorrow. And nothing about our workforce is looking the same. And as Kim said, we thought this would be post-COVID. Well, many of our businesses are now having another surge and their employees are out, or we have the problem of hiring employees and getting people back to work. So these are some of the things that we're going to talk about. I also, for those of you that are new to the Alameda Workforce Development Board on the services they provide for their employers, they have a hotline for you. So you have all of these wonderful services that California Employers Association provides to employers at your fingertips. You can talk to one of our HR directors directly about any of these products. And I applaud Alameda for doing this for their local employers to help them be very, very successful. So please remember to use this service. And what a little bit about California Employers Association. What do we do? Who are we? We are HR experts, and we provide support for businesses throughout California. We probably service now about 12,000 businesses. We provide the answers to those hard HR questions. We've got the forms and policies and toolkits. And I do want to just point out that you have resources available to you. Some are even free, but as members, there are other toolkits that you'd be able to get. So the training for the supervisors and managers and employees, and our consultations on your workplace. So keep this in mind. We're really here to give you peace of mind. And those are some of the things we're going to be talking about today. Okay, I got to say this. I'm not an attorney, so don't take my advice as legal advice, but we do advise you if there's anything that comes up and you want legal advice to consult your attorney. So what are we going to talk about today? And we're going to talk about the changes in our workforce. We are in some ways post-pandemic, because you see that the mask mandates have been lifted in most places, and many of the companies are saying we need to get back to work. Well, what does back to work look like today? And how do you bring those employees back to work? So we're going to spend some time talking about the remote or hybrid workforce, or bringing them back on site, and the reasons for each of those areas that are important. Also, probably the most difficult thing that has happened through this transition of COVID is getting enough people back to work, or getting people to work. And if you look at it, you've all heard about the Great Resignation or the Great Reshuffle. And it's been very, very hard for, I think, just about every industry to find people. So finding talent in today's world, what is different about recruiting, and really what kind of culture do you have in your organization, and what does that look like, and what are employees wanting? What do you want? And then we're going to talk about making work human. And again, going back to, as we're changing and morphing our business cultures, is how to make work more human, to address what employees are looking for today. So that's what we're going to be talking about. So I have a poll for you, and I think they're going to bring it up. And if you can take a look and answer those questions, what's changed about the way you work today? And then just quickly put your answers into the poll. And
Daniela, you can launch that.
I can't.
There you go.
Okay. I will launch it. There we go. So just take a moment, and we're seeing a lot of responses, a lot of all of the above. So we've just got a couple more people answering, and then we can take a look at it. But yeah, a lot of you are saying all of those things have affected you. So I'll give you 1 second more, and then I'm going to go ahead and end this poll. And I'm going to share the results with you. So let's talk about this for just a second on the changes that you've seen. Many of you said it was all of the above. What has impacted you the most, and what are you most concerned about in our new environment? Anybody?
New staff.
I'm sorry,
Training new staff.
training new staff and getting new staff.
Correct.
I work with a lot of workforce boards throughout the state, and that is something that has come up. Vanessa says retention, and that is a great point to make, because we're going to talk about engagement, especially in this virtual world. And again, when we talked about just in this roundtable format, some people are more comfortable with speaking out and others are not. But again, we have to engage our employees in this way. So any other comments or thoughts about what's changed for you?
One of the things, Javier, I don't know if you noticed, but when you're losing employees and then you're gaining new employees, one of the things we've seen is that it is harder in a remote world to train people. It takes longer for people to get up to speed. You know, they're having to make an appointment or share a screen to learn how to do something instead of being able to sit right next to each other in the same office and go, here's how you do this, here's how you do that. And so I know that that's been hard. We've lost some really key people, either they retired or whatever the case might be. So then you lose all this history, and then you're trying to do everything remote and people are piecemealing stuff. And that's just been really, I know, difficult. You know, things just take longer. Things are, you know, falling through the cracks that you used to be running like a dime, you know. So that's one of the things we've noticed.
Right. And I'm going to say too that as we go on, we're looking at how to marry the technology with engagement a little bit more. But this isn't going away. And as we talk about more of the areas in our presentation. Yes, David.
Yeah, I think one of the things that have been lost is that I think when you're in an office, and fortunately more often than not I'm in the office. This is actually one of the rare days I'm working from home. Typically I'm actually in the office, but I think that when you're working in an office, there are just, you know, you have that exchange of ideas, you have that exchange of information when you run into people in the hall, when you run into people to get coffee, that sort of thing. When you're at home, you're not going to run into people. You're not going to have that, oh, I just thought of something, because now if you just thought of something, you might lose that thought, you know, on your way to your laptop, or there's that instant exchange of information that you get in the office, as opposed to having to plan a Zoom meeting to have that exchange from home. So the great ideas, the creativity that comes from office spontaneity, that's lost when everyone's at home.
And we're going to talk about how do we address that, because that is something that's come up in our organization many times. And I'm going to use the word intention throughout this presentation to bring it back to how we can make that happen. I do want to answer, Carrie in the chat box put balancing compliance with talent acquisition priorities in a remote world. Yes, that is something, and our HR directors are constantly updating that information, because it changes hourly sometimes. I remember where we had bulletins going out, and by the time the one was done, another regulation had come in and changed that during that time of COVID. So you guys are all, we're the experts, and you're having to sort through this going, how do I balance being compliant and let my team and my employees do what they would like. And again, we're going to talk about it.
Carrie, would you expand on that a little more? Would you mind expanding a little more and go off mute? Yeah.
Sure. So my company's in a little bit of an interesting situation. We've been an employer in Washington State. We've had a small group of employees in California for intermittent projects, but all of a sudden this year, we're hiring long-term employees in California when we really had only plan to have short-term assignments. So we're needing to really switch our policies. We've just added Oregon as a state within the last couple of weeks. So that's brand new to us. And we also have long-term employees that we're starting to payroll in states where we are not an employer. And they're being recruited with the promise that they're getting benefits equivalent to our employees. We're considered a joint employer with this payrolling relationship. So it's really complicated. And we're realizing like there are all these policies that, because we're a staffing company, our client wants us to have, for example, paid parental leave, which isn't a problem in Washington and California. But if we're hiring somebody in a state that doesn't have paid state leave and we don't have a policy set up, what do we do? So that's kind of where we're trying to figure out, how do we get both our legal compliance and then just our company policies in line when our talent is expanding to states that we're not really ready to employ people in.
Yeah. One of the good and bad of the remote world we're in, right? Yeah.
Yeah. That is, we're, in fact, I think we were just talking, we have a new toolkit a new product called Ease to try and help employers that are out of state comply with California laws and the differences. So those are good things. Well, again, I'm going to go back to the presentation. We're going to address some of these things. We're not going to answer all your questions, but please feel free, ask the question in the chat. They'll stop me if I don't see the chat question, or just unmute yourself and let's stop and discuss, especially if something really triggers for you. All right, let's go back. All right, so in light of what you're saying, Fuse, which is a communications company, did a survey, and they talked about workforce flexibility, and they were surveying employees and what they thought about what was going on when they were shifted. And again, if you remember back in early March of 2020, that was when businesses started closing down. So working remotely for some companies wasn't even an option. But what started out at 31%, that number doubled to 62% by April 2020. And again, these are not the essential workers, the healthcare and other workers. They had to still go in, and companies that were deemed non-essential were closed. And there were no tools at that time for companies to adjust so quickly. We just did it. And I have to applaud the companies that were so innovative in making that adjustment and how they could do that and get their work done. But that number of 62% was really pretty consistent. Even now, and if I talk about the study that they do about remote work today, we are in the 50% of people remote or hybrid working. So that just so that we know that. 54% of employees were more willing to move to another company if it meant they got the flexibility. So this opened a Pandora's box in a sense for employers. They were not expecting this, and many of them were surprised that the flexibility of their employees and their productivity was not suffering. They had a little glitch in the beginning, but you found that as a whole, they were adjusting to this new normal, if you will. But employees were saying, I like this. This works for me. I don't have to commute 2 hours a day to get to my job. And oh, by the way, I really am so grateful to be doing this. I'm going to invest more time. And in fact, there were cases of people not stopping. And to Kara's point, the being compliant and making sure they take breaks and all of the things that we have to do in this HR world. So that is another part of that. 89% was the amount of workers who said, I want to keep doing this, and this should be the way we work, not just a benefit. 57, well, employees would like to not have set hours. Well, you know, isn't that great? But we have to, and again, depending on what you do, you're paying them for work, for hours, or for time. I think the biggest adjustment that employers have had to make is to not associate that they had to see you to know that you were working, but actually have tools that made your work but based on project and the accountability and the milestones you got to reaching those products. So that was another shift. And then workers, 77% wanted to work outside of the office during the week. And so that led pretty much to many of the companies looking at what we'll talk about is that hybrid workforce. But Gardner did a study with the questions about what employees said about how the pandemic actually changed their feelings about work and life. And they found that 65% of employees, especially those that were leaving their company, did so because during the pandemic, it shifted their thinking about their work-life balance and the importance of work, whether or not they had the same values and purpose within their company. So it made them question a lot that you are seeing the results of today that are coming out. So and so let's talk about productivity. And this same survey, the employees basically said, my productivity didn't suffer, you know. And I was, because everything again changes so quickly, as I was researching just this from the employer's perspective, from the employer's perspective as a whole, the majority of employers did feel productivity did not suffer, or in fact, productivity was higher. But there was 22% of employers that said, hey, our productivity went down. And you have to take that in light of how well were they set up to make this shift and actually gauge productivity and hold their teams accountable, and how were they engaging their teams. But if you look at this result, it really depended on what you did for the company. Senior, go ahead.
Danielle, I was going to say, to your point earlier, David, you know, it's more than just productivity, you know, so maybe things did get done. Maybe the papers did get pushed and the products did get made, but what was lost or what has been lost? And I think that always comes back to the balance, you know, being 100% this way or 100% that way is extreme either way. So how do you find that balance? Because productivity may be up, but perhaps creativity and innovation suffered, or employee engagement and retention suffered. So, you know, nobody wants to work in a churn factory where productivity is high, but retention is low and turnover is high too, you know? So, but these are great stats. I love seeing the statistics.
Right. And again, if you look at what the employees did, it made a difference in how they felt their productivity was doing. And it's not the fact that senior leadership felt that they were more productive isn't really a surprise, because typically in the office, it is exactly what David said. You had your, what I would call a stop and chat or instantaneous collaboration, or whatever you planned for the day was being pushed aside, and yet you still had your work. So productivity for senior leadership, where they actually focused on the strategic work that they were doing or the new programs, you know, they were feeling much more productive. So we're striking a balance here. And again, I think that we are seeing sort of a gap between what employers want today and what employees are looking for. But with the staffing situation and what we're dealing with in getting employees back to work, we're going to have to pay attention to this and make this work for all of our companies. So let's talk a little bit about if we are going to be a little bit more flexible. So the employees are saying, I want to work from home. What's the benefit to the business? You know, well, number one is you have, if retention is the key, which was brought up earlier, you have increased job satisfaction. People enjoy their work. They feel like they're being heard, and they also feel a little bit more in control of their day in some cases. For the business side, the expanded availability to the clients. We talked a little bit about where employees said, well, I don't want just, the regular hours. You don't have to have them. If you have different time zones for where your clients exist, shifting those hours, that really might work for some employees better than others. And again, it goes back to that engagement, loyalty, the people who love it. And I want to preface this, the employees that love this type of remote work or hybrid work will thrive in it. An employee that needs to have that interaction in the office and the people and the contact will not thrive. So we'll go back to know your people, know what works for them. How do you offer the best of both? The cost savings, and again, looking at your actual square footage, and do you need that much square footage today? How do you kind of take that all into consideration of the overall cost of reducing your footprint in that way? And that results in some savings for the companies. And I think the companies are just realizing that now too. And obviously injuries, absenteeism, and turnover, but not the solution for everybody, So I think these are all things that we should consider as businesses. So let's talk about the case for bringing those people back to work and why that would be important. And David, you talked about it. We've got the connection, the human connection. We as humans need that. And it helps us, it brings our energy level up. It helps us thrive in the various areas that we have. Gallup did this study and they put together those 4 key advantages. And it's just, all of it is things that we were talking about. We have the ability to be more collaborative when we come back and bring our people back into the office, whether it's planned or it is unintentional. But going back to, if you have resistance to bringing people back to work, what is the intention behind it? And when I went to this conference, it was great to talk about our new workforce and what it's going to look like, and marrying the on-site, the remote, and the hybrid. And the speaker brought up intention. Are you taking in what the employee would, how they would thrive the best? What do they want? Did you ask them? And in the collaboration area, what if the intention is we want to be collaborative, then let's make a day a week where you bring in the teams and you make it the intention to be collaborative and creative in that space 1 or 2 days a week. The other thing that's important about being on site is it's hard to create your corporate culture when everybody's working from home. So culture is very, very important in this area. And so and for those who may not know, when I talk about corporate culture, every company, it's pretty much the way we do things around here, right? It's our culture. It's how we treat our employees. It's how we work together. It's our benefits package. It's all about what we as an organization do, and that is our corporate culture. So it's important that as you're looking to this shift that we're doing, one of the things to realize is we're not going to go back to the way it was before COVID. That's not going to happen. I mean, and we're in a real strange time in our economy, in our business. We're in unprecedented circumstances of not knowing what we're going to be facing for the next year and the years to come, because of what not only we as a nation did, but worldwide, the shutdown that we had. So we're not even sure what that's all going to look like. And I also want to say, on the case for bringing employees back to work, many of you might have heard that Google and Facebook recently went out and just pretty much said to their workforce, you're going to come back to work, or we suggest you find somewhere else to work, which is so unlike the very people focused business that they had. And part of the reason for that, just to be clear, is because both of those entities are facing unprecedented changes in the next year or so, and they know they most likely will have to do a shift in or a layoff. And so they're letting people self-select. So just keeping these things in mind, every company's priorities are changing a little bit different. Before coming back to the office, some questions that you want to consider, bringing people back safely. So we like to say that this is post-COVID, but all of you probably know somebody that's got COVID today, and it's different. We're vaccinated. There's a whole lot of differences that we have, but we still have to have our COVID plan in place. And how do we bring them back, and keeping safety in mind? The next thing is, what is your organization's policy going to be on on-site work? Are you going to let some people work remotely full-time? Or are you going to have some sort of hybrid that's going to be a strategy that you're going to implement that works for your organization? And we're finding right now about 80% of the businesses are looking at hybrid work strategies. And the latest survey that came out by Al was saying that 81% of the employers say they're going to continue to support a hybrid, but they're doing this very thoughtfully with a plan. So as you go into bringing people back and looking at your plans for next year, do you have a strategy? And what is that strategy? And then, what is your workplace value proposition? Meaning, what is the value that you have for your employees? What is your benefits? What is your purpose? How are you making a difference? And do you know what your value proposition is? Because that is actually part of your employer brand. And as we go into talking about recruiting and other things, that brand is going to be very, very important.
Quick pause here, Daniela. I just wanted to address Carrie's comment. She was saying here on the side chat that remote work feels a lot safer for some people psychologically, and or if there's a physical disability that might make it difficult for somebody to come into the office as opposed to. So I agree with you, Carrie. There's certainly, again, that there's the pros and cons of everything. And so this has opened up a lot of good things for somebody who might have had some physical or psychological disabilities, and they prefer working at home. And so again, knowing those individuals, so those have been the positives. I also think this title could be changed almost, instead of before coming back to the office, because a lot of us are already back in the office, but it's like this is a constant discussion, so I think, again, back to your point of Google, Daniela, at one point it was like everybody can be remote for the rest of the year, blah blah. Now they're like, oh, everybody should come back in. And I think this just has to be an ongoing dialogue with all of our management teams. If there's a surge, maybe we're not coming back to the office 3 or 4 days a week, but once the surge is gone, now we do want people back in the office 3 days a week. And so I think that I like the fact that that visual is a circle, because I think this has to be a continual discussion, and we got to get away from these always, never, forever words and just go, what's working for our business this month or this quarter or whatever. And I think we'll have not tie our hands so much, you know, on these decisions, these black and white decisions, you know.
I agree. I agree with that. And again, each organization is going to have to look at what works for them. But I do believe that we are forever changed in our workplace, and our attitudes, and that next generation of leaders that are coming up are going to have a whole different view of work. And that involves technology, the use of technology, the understanding of technology, and the tools that are going to bring this so that it not only just marries our workplaces, but our interactions with our clients and how we work in the future, which is, you know, we always like to say, let's work hard, smarter, not harder. So we have a whole different presentation during that we have for employer requirements during COVID. But again, just some reminders that, you know, you have your remote work policies. Do you even have one? And we have a great toolkit for you to take a look at if you don't. But putting a policy, putting those thoughts down on paper and getting together with your leadership team to flush that out. Because you were forced into it in 2020, most likely, that you just shut down. Now you can plan for it. And how do you want that to work? And how are you going to stay in compliance to make that all happen? So some of the tips for hybrid work. And again, I believe I shared with you the statistic that 80% of the businesses, as people are coming back to work, have agreed to a hybrid schedule of anywhere from working 1 day in the office to working 3. One of the things that you need to work with your teams on, and also you as leaders need to be aware of, is having them create a successful workspace for them. You know, how do you make this work for the employee, and how does it work for you? So creating a workspace that is free of distractions, that they consider their place to go. Again, when we were shut down, people were working with their children at home and coming in and out of business meetings and all of this that we were doing so on the fly. But now we can be very thoughtful. Do you have a space? Can you create one? And it shouldn't just be a dining room chair at a table, because their back is going to kill them by the end of the day. You know, the ergonomics have to be do that. Also, the reasonable accommodations that we want to make in regards to taking breaks and being conscious of their work schedule. Help them develop a routine. What is that routine? And for some people, and again, this comes down to not, you know, if you have to have your people available for calls 8 to 5, they need to be available for calls 8 to 5. If you have project managers that are working on projects, you give them timelines, and some people may come down and start work at 5:30 in the morning, work 2 hours, go take their shower and come back. Again, what is acceptable for your organization? And then giving them the tools that can make them successful, whether it is the video conferencing tools or project management tools, things where they engage each other, like with Slack and apps. These are all things that we have to take into account if we're going to have this hybrid work long term. And making sure they take their breaks, and what are the goals. So you as managers really have to talk to your people, you know, one-on-one, at least if not daily, that you're meeting a couple of times a week, so you know what they're doing. And you need to set up with intention those meetings on Zoom where it can be engaging and be collaborative. So how do you do that? And that really means you have to be up on the technology in order to be able to do that. So going back to what employees want, They want a people first culture. You guys have all heard it, the shuffling that has been going around, the amount of people that are leaving companies. They are looking for companies that do put their people first. And I'm sure most of you consider that, because without your people, you don't have an organization, you don't have a company. They are looking for that flexibility. And flexibility comes up in what employees want, but it also comes up in what employers want. Employers want flexibility too. So how do we bring these two sides to meet in the middle? So every one of us is getting what we need. They are looking for more empathy from their managers and a commitment to well-being. And it was interesting because before our meeting here, we had a business over breakfast that CEA puts on, and our topic was all about wellness and well-being, and how important that is in the workplace. And never before, in fact, I forgot who put out this survey, but I think it was Gallup that just sent out an email, in fact, today, that said, we've never had more people in the United States as unhappy as they are today. Right? So why are people unhappy? And, put it in the chat, but I can think right now, we've just been through a point of uncertainty. People have lost people that they know. Everything in their life has been disrupted. And then now we're going into an economically challenging time. So, and they're looking for diversity and inclusion and professional growth. But empathy, leading with emotional intelligence, so important. And leaders today know that that is important. And by being with empathy or with emotional intelligence means that you're just really aware of what your employees need. You have a self-awareness about yourself and you keep your emotions in check. So those are all things that are important. So, for those companies, and some might be here with us today, sometimes remote work isn't even an option. And if you are letting some of your team be able to work remote and some cannot, especially about those front office people that have to be there, keep in mind, what can you do that kind of even makes it a bit more equitable? And some things might be giving them Friday off with pay occasionally, or other benefits that they get because they are not working at home. And I see companies being very, very creative about that. If you're looking at moving into the future, and almost every organization has been looking at this, is upgrading their technology and making sure that they have the tools that they can be as successful and as productive in this new environment. Then we come across how to keep people engaged. And as David brought up, if you don't have someone sitting next to you or you're not on a Zoom meeting, how do you keep that engaged? That is going to be up to your leadership team to do things that bring people together. Even if they're full remote, you're going to have to take a look at maybe having office all hands meetings once a month, once a quarter, where you bring everybody together, give them that face time, give them that interaction time. And then online on the employee engagement, you require people to be on camera. You require in the sense of that different people will lead the meeting so that they feel very comfortable in doing this, and setting up breakup groups and activities, and then fun things. Talk about the movies, your favorite movies that you saw. We always do that. And we have a weekly meeting with all of our staff, and there's always going to be a movie recommendation or Netflix or Hulu. What series are you watching? And everybody gets a lot out of that. So again, bring everyone back together. And as you set this strategy, do it with intention. Know where you're coming from and ask your employees what works for them. For some of them, working at home or remote isn't even something they want. They are so glad to come back to the office. So talk about that. So a little bit on this,
Javier, did you have a comment?
Oh, yeah.
Just a little earlier, I mean, and you know, you're ahead of what I was going to bring up, and that was about those essential workers that, you know, need to be at work, right? And what they're seeing. And, you know, out of sight, out of mind with your colleagues. You don't know what they're doing. Sure, you can pick up the phone. Sure, there's certain meetings, but, you know, those that have to come in, you know, those are the ones that you really have to start worrying about. I believe you have to start worrying about. And I like what you said, you know, sometimes there's certain incentives that you can do, you know, to make up for that. I don't want to say make up because work is available,
Right.
work is provided, but at the same time, you know, they're human beings, right? And that's something that you really need to look at. And I listened to what you were saying, and I thought, well, yeah, okay, you know, those people that do come, those workers that do come in, what's in their mind? What do they see? You know, bring them in, speak to them, and find out what their thoughts are and what you can do. All right. If they can open up to you, that's great. But as a leader, you need to take that leadership and move forward with that person.
I'm
Take care of
curious.
that person.
Yeah, Molly or Eleanor or Caitlin or anybody, what have you guys done anything different for the people who are coming in that you maybe didn't do 2 or 3 years ago? Just to make the being here at work in the office, I'm in the office today as well, a little bit nicer than you might have thought about doing a couple of years back.
I want to say what we're doing is enticing people to come into the office.
There you go. Like how? What are you doing?
We provide food for 1 day a week. So typically a lot of people come in 1 day a week, like on Wednesdays, and they look forward to it. And, you know, they actually sit down together, have a lunch together. And it's typically the same people. And they like that camaraderie. I think once you get into the office and you see that, they miss that. And then it's like a growing number over, I think in the last few months, we've got a growing number that's going in.
Great. Molly, anything that you guys do?
Kind of the same thing as the previous one. We every now and then we'll provide like breakfast or just a little social gathering during lunch or after work as well. But a lot of our coworkers are still hybrid. Like for our accounting department and stuff, we still have about 50-50 of people full-time or hybrid.
Good.
Yeah, I think food works for all of us, right?
Yes.
Whether it's donuts or coffee or lunch, or we all
Ham
like
and cheese
food.
croissants is what we've been getting lately.
Ooh, yum.
So.
I didn't eat breakfast, so that makes me hungry right now.
Yes.
And I do want to, Javier, just be mindful of that, of the employees that are required to be in the office, of how to make it fun, or what kind of perks you can in fact give them a little bit extra to even that out a little bit, you know, to make their voices heard. So anything else? Caitlin says we have started virtual games and raffles. I like that. Yeah, so that you know, they staff birthdays and anything to celebrate, which we'll talk a little bit about in making work human. So good. All right. So this is just some statistics for you to know on employees still want professional growth. And in fact, they're asking for it. They want a career path. They want to know where they're going. If they're staying with your company, you need to make sure that you're giving them the opportunities to learn. We have never had so many requests for leadership training as we are having right now, post-COVID, so to speak. But the employees that are there, the employers are trying to give them the skills that they need to succeed and stay with their company. And so you're looking at, in 56% of employees want to be managers or take those supervisory classes. And then again, we want a coaching culture. And when we talk about recruiting, we talk about onboarding, it's really, we have to mentor them as our teams as leaders and look for other mentors, but make sure they're getting the coaching they need to stay engaged and be successful. And they're saying 80% of employees have gotten coaching and had a positive experience with it. So that's something to keep in mind. You know, I'm going in the interest of time because we've actually discussed, you know, what your challenges are as an employer today. We'll kind of table this for the end if we have time to talk a little bit more about what your biggest challenge is today and some of the ideas we can have to overcome that. So recruiting has probably never been so difficult as it has in the last year. In the trends that we're looking at, virtual recruiting, interviewing, that's not going away. But as I talk about the pain points about what employers are having today, it's never been harder to bring talent into your organization and find them. There are fewer applicants. And even if you think you have somebody applying for the job, they ghost you as you go through the whole process of trying to bring them into interviews. You never hear from them again. And we really work hard with employers to try to get them to understand the differences it is that we have in this candidate market versus the employer market. The cost of hiring those employees, it's going up. And so if you're not retaining them and you're paying for training and then they leave, it is a very costly procedure to lose someone. So you want to make sure you're finding the right fit for your organization. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this, but the job postings from a candidate's perspective, it's all going to be about selling your organization and selling your company and developing your brand. You want to make sure that's happening. One of the trends, and we're starting to see this go down, but last year it was those signing bonuses. You were being paid to get hired, and I've never seen it as it was like it's been in the last year. That even companies, especially those in the hospitality industry, your restaurants and hotels, were actually paying people to show up for an interview. Unheard of in years past, but that is something that has been happening over the last year. Passive recruiting is up. And again, companies are going on LinkedIn and just searching out titles and talents for people to try and see that we can entice someone to leave their organization. And again, that is your great reshuffle, if you will. And then artificial intelligence in recruiting is sometimes making it so no human sees that resume for quite a while as it comes down. So when we talk about what employers need, this is Forbes 2021 list. Every year they ask, what are the top priorities of the employers nationwide? And you can see here, some might apply to you, some might, but analytical skills is always in the top 3. But what is different is number 3 now is remote work skills. They are now looking at this as something they need from their workforce just because they're working differently now. When we talked about employees wanting flexibility from their employers want adaptability, flexibility, resilience, whatever you call it. In other words, your job description that I have for you today may not be your job description for tomorrow. Are you flexible? Can you cross-trade? Can you work as we are shifting people around? So that ability to be more flexible. The creativity and innovation, we always see that up in the top ones. And the need for a project management has never been more important. But here comes emotional intelligence, and not just among the leaders of an organization. Employers are saying, I want you to be more self-aware, and I want you to be more emotionally intelligent in the workplaces as well, to be able to work in teams better, to peer-to-peer be better, and also just that awareness of keeping the emotions in check and before you speak, so all of that's become very important.
What I think is positive about this list is that it's not employers just saying we need hard workers who are going to, be workaholics. What we're seeing here is employers are really saying, I want a more well-rounded human being, and a person who is good at communicating with others, who's a good leader, who's good with AI or analytics and data and technology, but also can be flexible and adaptable. So it's like, this is like the unicorn here, this person who can do all of these things. But I do think it's a good thing, rather than we just want somebody who can breathe. It's a much bigger package. And so I think this is a really positive slide about employers embracing and looking for a whole person. So I really like this, and this is even a year old, so that's great. And I think this is probably even more stressed today.
A lot. And again, they're looking for self-leadership in people too, as we all should. And all of this kind of goes together, because if you're looking at emotional intelligence, which is also self-management. So that is really key. And obviously the digital communication skills are extremely important. So I don't know how many of you would raise your hand to this. I know that we can raise our hands because we do recruiting for many of our employers on every one of these pain points. How do I get my job ad to stand out? And so many employers are not selling themselves in that ad. We get their ad that they want to post, and we have to rewrite it every time to say, what is the benefit? Why would I want to work for you? Look at it from the candidate's perspective. How many times do you have to follow up with a candidate just to get a response? And that goes back to candidates that ghost you. They go through the whole process. They either are going to decline that job offer because somebody snagged them up faster, or they just simply don't respond at all. And it's just been an increased time to find that talent. The screening takes longer, the interviewing process takes longer. And because we are doing this both in a virtual world, and we'll talk about the interviews, it's changed how we interview. We may go through 4 or 5 interviews to get that person hired. And some people are being hired with never meeting their new manager or their other teammates in person. So, and again, the people, the unsuitable candidates, meaning they never read the job description and just have absolutely no experience, but they're going to apply for an engineering job and just see if it sticks, And I do know our head recruiter, she did say that. She goes, I had to call this one guy. He had absolutely no, he did not have a degree in engineering. He had nothing to say. And I said, why did you apply this? And he goes, well, it sounded interesting. I just wanted to see if it would stick, So again, and tough to really engage those people online. So here are some things that I want to talk about, and we can discuss this as well, the tips that you have for successful recruiting within your organization. And it goes back to you selling yourself as an employer. Do you know what value you bring to your employees? And do you know how to highlight that in a job description, in a job ad? How are you standing out amongst other businesses in your industry? And I would suggest reading some of the ads that other companies or organizations in your field put out. And you will find some that really shine, that put their culture up front, their benefits, their purpose, so you want to do that to really make yourself stand out. Looking for ways to make the hiring process a little faster. One of the things our lead recruiter has said is she's got a great candidate for the employer, everything's ready to go, but the employer's process for interviewing and hiring went too long and they lost that candidate to somebody else. So you want to make sure you are with the times in making this a timely process for bringing people back on board. Always look back and reconnect with people, with candidates that pause. And by the way, even if a candidate is hired by another organization, doesn't necessarily mean they stayed with them. The amount of people leaving after 90 days has never been higher. So if you can have a good relationship with someone that you have placed an offer with before, or somebody that maybe just put themselves out of the running, make sure that you stay in connection with them. And then we have what we call the contact trifecta, and that's to call, text, and email. If you are not hearing, especially from the younger generation, Gen Zs, and the millennials that are not getting back to you, you need to text them. The response that you'll get from texting will be much, much higher. So keep that in mind. As we look at interviews today, I think all of you know it. We're doing this right now in our virtual meetings, but they're going to take place around some sort of video platform, at least for the initial screening. What you want to do as employers is make sure that you're coming across as the most professional. You give the candidates a good taste of your culture as you can from an interview perspective. This also allows panel interviews to be happening a lot easier when you have this. But look at, even if it's your virtual background that you put into place so that you're all uniform in you're doing that, and make sure that you're well versed in video interviewing and how you look at the candidates and asking the questions. So that the interview processing of still doing videos is going to be very important, but now you're going to be bringing them in. And however you set up your process, make sure that it's very clear to your whole team. If you're going to be bringing in the department heads or other members of your team to meet this candidate as it gets down to the last three that you're making that selection for. When you're recruiting, and we all know 92% of employers are using social media to hire. I know many of the workforce boards are involved in all areas of social media, from Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, even Pinterest is now a place where you can post jobs. So make sure that you have someone on your team that's very well versed on it, because you are missing out on an opportunity to post your position to a wider audience. Obviously, LinkedIn is a great place for passively recruiting, and I talked about that earlier. What you would want to do is search out people that, and not even to recruit them to leave their company and work for yours, but asking them if they know somebody in that industry or an association that they can do that. And video are so important in today's market for recruiting. You have the opportunity to talk about your company, to show off something about your company, to have fun with your organization and company. So it's very, very important. So when we look at what makes employees stay at a company, well, we talked about 34%. It was about the corporate culture. And again, the corporate culture is how we do things around here. They like it. They feel valued. They feel that they have a voice and that they make a difference. And that is more important today than it's ever been in the past, is feeling that connection with the company, and that your values and the company's values are matching. 92% say they want their managers to show more empathy. And that is one thing about emotional intelligence that is different about than other assessments is that it's something that can be learned. You can learn to have more empathy. You can improve your emotional intelligence by being more aware of yourself and your audience as a whole. So by being more empathetic, they're just asking that they matter to that manager. And that manager is the reason that they're staying at the job. And then engagement across all levels, on-site or virtual. If they feel engaged, if they feel they make a difference, if they feel they have purpose, they are going to stay with an organization. So that is really the tentacles of how to keep an employee with you. And one of the things that's come out that is a little bit newer is really talking about the stay interviews. And if you've never heard of a stay interview, it is taking those employees, I believe it was Javier that said, we have to pay attention to the employees that are there and stay or in the office. Sit down, have a meeting with them and ask them what they love about the organization. What is their favorite part of working here? Why have they stayed so long? And ask them what else they'd like to see the organization or company do for them. So that all of those things play together. So
is anybody doing any of those stay interviews, or does anybody just do one-on-ones, or what are you guys doing? I want to make sure we have lots of talk time here before we end today.
yeah.
So what is anybody doing to just make sure you're connecting with people?
Well, at my company, managers have regular one-on-ones with their direct reports. I mean, and it's check-in, it's about development. And then some departments also have like, team meetings just to talk about like what's going on with their department, what's working, what's not.
Yeah.
And did you do that before the pandemic and you're doing it now too? Or do you feel like you're doing it differently today than you used to do it?
We actually started it before the pandemic, but now we're just giving it more of a push because it looks like things are not going to change, right? So right now we're working on that.
Good, good.
I like what Tara put in there. We used to have a 10 at 10 where we would all break at 10 a.m. and have some sort of movement for 10 minutes, whether it's dancing, exercise, whatever it is. That's a fun one. That's a fun one.
Every once in a while, we all still used to have little dance parties here. So it was just like, just do a 2-second dance party. It just breaks it all up, you know?
Yeah, no, so fun, so fun. Anybody else?
I know one of the things we are going to do now moving forward that we didn't used to do as much. We used to have more frequent in-person opportunities, and now that we don't, we are going to dedicate, we'll have quarterly staff meetings, and they'll be spread over a 2-day period. The time that we're together as a group will be about the same, but we're kind of doing, as you use the word, intentionality. So for example, we happen to be in Sacramento, but our employees are all over the state. So we're bringing everybody in on a Thursday. We're going to meet, do a Sacramento underground tour, which I'm sure some people will love and some people will hate, doesn't matter. Everybody's doing it together. We're going to have a shared experience, and we're going to make some memories together, whether they're dorky ones or good ones or funny ones or whatever. We're going to make some memories together and then have dinner. And then everybody who's local goes home. Other people will go back to the hotel. And then the next morning in the hotel, where the people who've traveled in from are staying, we'll have a regular staff meeting, which will go from 9 to 2 or whatever. And then people will head home. So just allowing for an opportunity to break bread together, so to speak, and to experience something together. Because again, we aren't getting to experience seeing you on Monday morning and hearing how are your kids, or how was your weekend, or where was your latest family vacation. So we need to give people more opportunities to sit and have dinner together or and not just be in a meeting, but let them have free time, networking time, laugh time, and doing that enough times throughout the year that, you know, hey, God, I didn't even get to talk to you at the last staff meeting, but this meeting I can. I want to sit right next to you at lunch or dinner or whatever. So that's something we're really focusing hard on here.
Well, that's
You know,
good.
and that's so true. I mean, we kind of missed that. You know, we used to have it every month, those who had a birthday on a certain month, right? And
Mhm.
you'd have that celebration. You'd have a cake and then, you know, card that go around and sing happy birthday. I mean, those little things were so important, right? I mean, for everyone, I believe. But yeah, you know, but now it's time to you know, maybe everybody get up at the same time and take a nice little walk outside for 10 minutes and then come back as a team, right?
I think-
Mhm.
I
As a
like
group.
that.
I think that's a real good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. And that's a great lead into, you know, how we're, you know, as we're wrapping things up, it's really about leading with humanity, right? That we are aware of the hard times that our teams have gone through, that we ourselves are going through, and what we've done. So Eric Mosley and Derek Irvine did a book that was called Making Work Human. And it really drives home the point of how we as humans want to belong. We want to know that our job, whatever it is, it's making a difference. And I'm going to ask you as employers, make sure you're letting every team member know how important they are in what you do as an organization. Because I don't care what your job is. If you're an intern in an organization, you are making a difference by making things move forward. And sometimes we forget to do that with our teams. So giving that purpose and meaning to life. And the results are fantastic. It's easier recruitment, it's better performance. It really gets your juices flowing for creativity. And all in all, you're serving that customer better, because people feel good about themselves. And that we mirror what we see, right? As human beings, it's a natural part of our communication. If you're getting a lot of negativity, guess what you're giving your customers? So keep that in mind. So it's automatic. You're improving your bottom line at this point. So how do we make work more human? First of all, it's with our gratitude. It's thanking peer-to-peer, manager to their employees. It's the organization to their workforce. It's all of that. Using our gratitude and letting that be the basis by we're grateful that you're here. And again, it's that making someone feel valuable, right? Because Gallup says in their surveys, and one of the most important things that comes out in really successful corporate culture is that employee feels that at least 3 or more times a week they are hearing from somebody that they've made a difference, they're doing a good job, they're getting some sort of praise from their leader. The other one is our communications, that we're engaging and talking, and we share with each other all about the meaning of our organizations, the purpose of what we do and how we make a difference and how important each one of them is. And then you're also hearing their voice. When you're making so many changes in that organization, that is so important. And then we want to celebrate, and Javier brought up the birthday celebrations or whatever you do to make someone be seen. So when we want to say, how do we thank, make sure that in your culture, it's peer-to-peer recognition is encouraged. And you as a leader, make sure that everybody on the team knows when you've said somebody's doing a really great job. So it's not just those big contributions or those big contracts that you get, but what about the small wins, the daily wins that you have in your organization? Are you even recognizing that? And I get it. We all get paid to do a job. And I've had some leaders say, well, I don't want to make a big deal about what they should be doing, but people make extra efforts all the time. And sometimes a customer might just be sending a really nice note about one of your teammates. You want to make sure everybody sees that, right? And again, that recognition goes a long way to changing your culture. If you don't have a leadership team, I'm going to encourage you to do that. Get your people involved, get your managers involved, but really educate your leadership team on how you're shifting this culture and what the vision is. And also a really strong leadership team will guide you to your next place. Creating a DEI committee, diversity and inclusion is important to the employees. And regardless of how you feel as an employer, you need to bring this all in. So have a committee. We have one at CEA that addresses how to be more inclusive in our whole organization, because we have staff working statewide. So we don't want anybody to be left out. Incorporate meetings that are one-on-one with your staff. Every week, meet with one of your staff one-on-one. That, especially in this virtual world, is really important. And just have your regular conversations, and make sure that you make a point to do that, and engage them. And our celebrations, take a look at your company holiday calendar. Are there more holidays that maybe your organization or company can do? Maybe you can add a holiday, something that's really special. We talked about celebrating those wins, small or large, but that celebration is your connection and engagement. It's a happy place for people. And then recognizing the life events of that are personal, birthdays being one, or other milestones. Somebody just graduated and got their master's degree, celebrate. And then on the professional, their anniversaries. Kim is just absolutely fantastic. And I've been with the organization going on 14 years, and every anniversary, everyone here gets this nice email about how amazing you are. And it's wonderful. And then everybody tells you you're amazing. So it all works really well, but it feels good. It feels good. So celebrate with your people and think about ways to do that. So as we summarize, and I say you've got this, you absolutely do. Take a look at how you're planning next year. Look at that word resilient, flexible, as it from an employer, how you can merge the workplace into working what works for the employees and the employers, and be supportive. We're changing at light speed every day. We do not know what's around the corner. And so be supportive with all the challenges that you're going to face, and then also leading with the human factor in mind, leading with that humanity piece first. So I'd like to thank you. It was great. I enjoyed this so much. And it was great to see, I haven't got to individually talk to some of you, but I recognize many of you. And then here is your HRCI numbers and your SHRM numbers. So if you'd like to go ahead and write those down. And then we have a couple of minutes for questions, so we can end this with a discussion.
Thanks so much, Daniela. We appreciate that very, very much. A couple things before we take off here. We still got a few minutes. I just wanted, again, this is all part of Alameda County's Lessons in Leadership. So this was part 2 of a 3-part series. The next one is starting on October 19th. So you can go to employers.org right now and go to the trainings. And then when you look under the virtual trainings, you'll see that on October 19th, under the private trainings, we have one. And Javier, I know you're going to be sending out a flyer soon to everybody. October is a long ways away, but if you sign up now, you you get a goodie box. So the first 10 of you who signed up for today got a goodie box in the mail with some snacks and some swag and just kind of some things to remind you about today's meeting. So we'll be sending that out again. So again, October 19th, inclusivity in the workplace. Please write it on your calendar. Javier will be making sure he sends that flyer out to everybody. And you can find it on our website under virtual trainings, and then go to private because it'll say public or private. These are private just for Alameda County. And Javier, what? Go ahead.
Kim, I'm going to go ahead and put that into the chat box.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Yep. And then I've also got, there's a lot in the chat box right now I just put in there.
Yes,
so this,
perfect.
that link to the registration page that Kim is referring to, I just put that in there for you. I also put in the link to Alameda County's website,
Hotline.
The hotline and the website. I got a lot of plates spinning in my head. So that you can capture this, the recording of this webinar will be on there in the next couple of days. So those couple of things are there for you as well. So it's a big chat box right now.
Wonderful.
And I'll also put the HRCI code in there as well, just in case you did not get that, because sometimes that happens. And last but not least, Javier, if you'd like to say something, but I just want to remind everybody that right after this, a survey will pop up. So please take it because it really helps us out. We would love to hear your feedback. If this was useful and helpful and anything else that you'd like to let us know about how we can do better or what we're doing great already. So that's what I've got. Javier?
Yeah, Danielle and Kim and Tara and the whole team and everyone that participated today, thank you so much. Please tell your colleagues about this, these webinars and these workshops. I think that they're great. I think the interaction that we had today was fantastic because, yeah, your workers are a big part of it and you're a big part of it. And, those appreciations go a long way. And especially what's happening today in this world, kindness goes a long way. Those little cards that you put on someone's desk, they come in the morning, they see that, it puts a big smile at. Sometimes it becomes a topic at home, at dinner table, this is what I got. Oh, how sweet, or whatever it might be. That's the kind of feeling, like someone said, I think it was Danielle, what happens, to you, it reflects back to others, right? And we need to think about that. And sometimes if we're not doing it, we need to change our ways. But thank you so much. It was very, very informative.
Thanks, Javier. Yeah, this is your taxpayer dollars at work, so it feels good when you know it's making a difference. And also there's a wellness at work webinar that we're offering that's free to everybody in California. That wellness at work is going to be, is that August 16th or 17th, Tara and Stephanie?
16th.
August 16th. So again, if you go to employers.org, that's all about bringing wellness into the workplace and things you can do and talk with your leaders about, if you're already one of the leaders, things you can do to help with a lot of the mental health issues that are happening with everybody in the world right now. And so just the more we can all learn and support each other, the better. So I thank you for being here and supporting us. And just that collective solidarity always feels good. Is there anything anybody else wanted to add? We still have another moment or two. Okay, well then, David.
Yeah, just something I just wanted to add real quick. It was something that I was going to bring up earlier, but I guess I'm just going to say it now, is that as someone that used to manage a caseload and used to work directly with job seekers, with
Wait,
clients.
just I'm losing you. I said
We're
as somebody
losing
who
your-
used to manage a caseload, and then you kind of faded out.
Oh, as someone that used to manage a caseload and work directly one-on-one with job seekers, when possible, if the job posting can include how much it pays.
Agreed.
There are so many times over the years that I would bring these jobs to the job seeker and say, hey, look at this position. This looks like a good fit. And one of the first things that would ever come out of their mouths would be, how much does it pay?
Mhm.
And it's just a way to just move the whole thing
That's a great point, David. And I know that many employers that, in fact, we have to fight for that to say in today's world, if you don't put the pay in, many times they won't respond.
And you're wasting everybody's time when you don't put that in there.
So that is a great point. Thank you. Thank you.
As a Washington State employer, this is something we're going to have to start doing in January 2023 anyway. So it's one of those additional states that's forcing everybody to do it just to remain competitive.
Good point. Good point.
Yep, I think it's a smart idea. I think everybody should have been doing it all along. It just makes, you know, even if it's just a range, you're allowed, Carrie, are you guys in Washington, you'll be allowed to show a range, or do you have to show the, So yeah, I don't have to give everything away, but hey, it's between, you know, 60 and 80,000 as opposed to, you know, is it something that was at, you know, $22 an hour that I didn't want to apply for or something? Yeah, good. Excellent point, David.
Good.
All right, thanks again, Javier, Alameda County Workforce Development Board. We appreciate you very, very much. Everybody have a terrific, terrific week, and we'll see you again hopefully in August and October.
Yes, thank you
Thank
guys
you.
so much.
Bye, everyone. Have
Appreciate
a
it.
great day.